For those, this is the work session for the January the 11th, 2021, and we are in session. We're doing this obviously remotely, and we'd like to welcome all those that are at home that may be watching this tonight. So we are separated, as you can see, in different rooms, and some of us are at town hall, some of us are at home. Paul, can you hear the echo?
I don't think so. I think I'm in good shape. Are you okay?
Yeah, there's an echo.
Might get everybody to mute. I know we can work on that a little bit and see if that helps a little bit.
Just hold on, everyone, just hold on for just a second. We're going to see if we can get the echo out of here. Yeah, just go in her room. Yeah, sorry about this, man. I tested my earlier, it wasn't fine. Yes.
You come have a seat here.
Okay, it's got your name on
He's gonna swap the name for you.
it. Okay.
So give him just a minute.
All right.
Already unmuted you, so you're ready to go.
Is it unmuted?
All right, let's try this again. We are in session. This is the work session for January the 11th, 2021. Glad everyone's here. Hope everyone had a nice holiday, as you could with the pandemic. And so we'll start with consent agenda item number 1. All items listed below considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held except on request by a member of the Board of Commissioners. A, request to extend benefits for the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act and Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act through June 30, 2021. B, schedule public hearing on January 25, 2021 at 6 p.m. for a proposed deed of correction between the town of Aberdeen and Echo Relocation LLC, requested by Mike. Is there a motion to accept?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For you. For item B, it's stating that it's been discussed at length in previous meetings. So this whole right of way and everything that we're going to be looking at is already been discussed through the planning board or just through Justin's department. I would just want some more information on it because I go past here every day and I know exactly where this is gonna take place. Paul, has this just already been?
Yeah, I think Justin may be to weigh in on this too. So basically, yeah, this has been more of a TRC discussion. And really to kind of wind it down, to simplify it, I mean, really it's just a property line correction with a piece of property that's just changing hands. That's all it really is. It's like the old plat just didn't match up with the right of way that was on paper. And we're just trying to clarify that and get those lines extended. Justin, I don't know if you're there, if you want to give more information on that, but it's a pretty it's a pretty procedural thing. It's not like there's just a giveaway of land, trying to swap off whatever we're giving up or picking up somewhere else, pretty much.
Hey, Paul, this is Joe. I'm just tracking, all we're doing is scheduling the public hearing where we will discuss this at length.
That's correct.
Yeah,
All right.
so all we're
Sure.
doing is scheduling the public hearing, and then during the regular meeting, we'll talk about it more.
And it's a point of clarification. It's a public meeting, not a public hearing. Legally, there is a difference. By statute, and it was a typo on my part, by statute, a public meeting is all that's required. A public hearing means you'd have to take comment from the public. You're not obligated to take comment from the public, but if you would do a public hearing, you would be. And there's no state statute to require this in this particular situation. So we want to be very clear. It's a public meeting.
Thank you.
To clarify that, because their plans is to build 11 homes possibly, and I was just trying to find out what the hearing was going to entail.
It's as Paul mentioned, over the past 100 years or so, the right-of-way lines and the property lines that have been deeded through the course of several different owners have not always matched up, and in the sense of doing the due diligence, the surveyor and the property owner and their lawyer have noticed that, as Paul mentioned, the lines don't match up, and that actually includes the location of our road. So it's a clerical fix all that we are bound to have a public meeting on. And as Commissioner Danley pointed out, this is just to set that meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as written.
And I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. If you vote, please say your name. All in favor?
Elise Goodwin, yes.
Brian Bowles, yes.
Teresa Beavers, yes.
Wilma?
Wilma Laney, yes.
Joe Danley, yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. We'll close out item 1 and go to item number 2, request from Faye Honeycutt with the Aberdeen Postmaster's House for COVID-19 funds.
Mayor, I'll introduce this item, and I know Butch is on the line too, and he can weigh in. He's had a little bit more detailed information on this. So in a nutshell, this is a request from Faye Honeycutt. I think most of y'all know Faye and her involvement with the Postmaster's House. And she had contacted me back sometime in the early fall last year, mid-fall, about are there any monies available to help the Postmaster House, which, as you know, it's a nonprofit organization that the town has supported for some time, and we provide annually funds for the Postmaster's House just as part of our budget to help them along. Well, like many places, they've had a rough time from March through presently, really through the end of the calendar year for certain. And they were looking for some support directly from the town to help fund the house, because obviously they still have the utilities and other monthly expenses that they faced for this we're really pushing 10, 11 months now of the time frame without a real chance for revenue. They had a few events early in the year, as you can see. They really didn't make much money, a few $100s for the year. So they're a good bit behind. So there was a request. And if you remember, the county had some money that came from the state that was for COVID uses. That was our grant, as our portion of that was $134,000, which is going back several months, which we applied for, and we received all of those funds. And we used which was encouraged by the state and the county. We used our payroll for public safety employees to preserve their staffing, so there was consistency and there was no turnover in staff during that time frame. And so we've been able to draw down all of those funds. And we've also been able to fund, which is in the works now, some improvements to our facilities, security access, touchless devices to help us get through this time frame. So with that entire $134,000, which we've already received, in terms of what's been budgeted to be spent so far, because once that money was in our fund, we've already got the budget amount for the employee expenses. So, in a way, it's new funds, and we already have met the protocols for all the COVID use by designating the payroll for public safety. You remember that conversation about that was encouraged, and that's the approach we took. So we've done all that. So when I say there's COVID money available, I'm really talking about that entire $134,000, because we do fund our payroll, separately. We do have some of these monies available on that separate list that the board approved sometime in early fall for more facility improvements. We're at about the $98,000 to $100,000 figure for those funds. I think we'll probably use another probably $4,000 or $5,000. There's some other improvements which we'll talk about probably at the next meeting in January. Some more needs in public works to get some of their access squared away. So that'll probably bring up to about $105,000. So we still have a pretty healthy account in that COVID line item, which we added this year. So going back to the request, the Postmaster's House has asked for assistance to help them get through this time. And they submitted directly to the county. There's a separate way for these nonprofits to receive money that would be separate from our allocated amount, but a direct funding. And some nonprofits have gone that route and been successful and received funds, but the Postmaster's House did not qualify in the discussion of the county for those funds directly from the county. So the Postmaster House has fallen back, just looking for direct support from the town of Aberdeen. That's what it really amounts to, just the ability of the town to directly support them if the board decides to do so in its discretion. And so those are the numbers I've lined up for you. You see the expenses that Ms. Honeycutt has presented for that time frame. And I add a little bit more to cover the end of the calendar year, because our numbers kind of fell off about the middle of October. So I thought it was appropriate to go to the end of the calendar year through the end of December. And that's why, my recommendation, if the board is interested in funding and assisting the Postmaster's House, is to award the amount of $4,000. We do have funds to do that. We would use the COVID-19 line item that Butch has referenced in the past, and it would be well within our budget to do so. So if that helps, I just want to give you a little bit of foundation there, and certainly it's a discretionary award by the board should it choose to do so.
Thank you, Paul.
I make a motion that we provide the Postmaster's House with COVID-19 funds
In the amount of what?
in the amount of 4,000.
Okay.
Paul, did you say 4,000 round figure?
Yeah, 4,000 even.
In the amount of $4,000.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
There is a second. Discussion from the board. Hearing none. If you vote, please say your name. All in favor?
Paul Mulaney, yes.
Elise Goodwin, yes.
Brian Bowles, yes.
Teresa Beavers, yes.
Joe Danley, yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Go to item number 3, request for direction on the type of recommendation that the town would like to make for the January 27th Moore County work session on occupancy tax for Moore County.
Mayor, okay, so this is more really just a discussion item. And first, I do want to thank the board. I appreciate you supporting the Postmaster's House. It's a great venue. I know you all feel a lot of pride with it. And again, I know they're going to be extremely appreciative for the board support. So we'll make sure we contact them first thing tomorrow and let them know the award. So on the next item, on the occupancy tax rate, and I know I hate to even call the 2 new commissioners new because it's been over a year now. And I know you've kept up in the papers before you were elected last year. And, time flies on these items. But so this is an item on the occupancy tax rate. Some call it a hotel motel tax. And it's been kicking around for really, I don't even know how long, Mayor, before I was here. I know it was talked about a good bit some 3.5, 4 years ago. And before that time, it was talked about a little bit about an increase, and now it's come back up again. And it seems like the Board of Commissioners, the county commissioners, have a little bit more interest in possibly following through and actually increasing that occupancy tax rate. So I want to just make sure everybody's on the same page. So presently the rate in Moore County, and this applies to all hotels and motels, is at 3%, or some like to say 3 cents on the dollar, or 3%. So what that means is when you have your hotel stay, it applies, they add a 3 cents per dollar tax to that. It's collected by the county, or, collected by the hotel motel, sent to the county. And then in Moore County, and this is the agreement or the contract with those proceeds, all of the funds go to the CVB, who handles, of course, the tourism element and advertising for Moore County. Now, there are some state rules, guidelines that limit how this occupancy tax proceeds may be spent. Some of it can be spent for advertising, and then some of it can be spent for actual building of facilities. Not really operations, but really what they call brick and mortar, like the construction of the facility, or even the debt for such a facility. But you can't really use it for, there's some fine lines on using it for instance, what they would call operations. That is not part of the intent or the use of that tax. So it's really to pay for the actual facility. Like if you were building a park or a ball field, like we're doing in the Sportsplex, or the county's done in its baseball fields in Carthage, that would qualify, or the debt on that would qualify as an occupancy tax revenue appropriate expenditure. And then certainly the expense can be, or the expenses for advertising, whether it's for vacationing, tourism, playing golf in Moore County, those are all legitimate expenditures for this tax. There's a few other minor things that can be used with the CVB, but that'd be a question for them to explain. But those are the basic uses. So the 3 cents on the dollar, or the 3% that's in Moore County, is literally the lowest in the state of North Carolina. There might be one other county in the state of North Carolina that also has a 3%. I'm not sure exact math on that. The mayor may recall, but we are the lowest, or tied for the lowest, in the entire state of North Carolina. So most states are somewhere between 5 and 6%. The North Carolina statute, the general statute, that the highest amount you can charge is 6%, unless you get a special local act which allows you to go up to a higher amount. And there are a handful of jurisdictions in North Carolina. I want to say Charlotte, Mecklenburg County has one. I think there's another one or two that have a higher rate, that they have gotten approved by local legislation, maybe with some other expenditures for their special legislation on that. And I think they're around the 8% rate for those who have had an increase approved. That's not really the case here. The thought here is to consider an increase to the statutory permitted amount, the highest amount under the basic statute, of going to 6%. So when you think about it, you think, well, it's a higher tax. Is that really a good thing? Do we really need that? But I think you have to really put in perspective the idea that this tax, if there is such a thing as a good tax, is a good tax in the sense that it is paid by visitors to Moore County. I mean, obviously, that's going to be 99% of your hotel and motel users, not residents who live here. Maybe on occasion somebody's putting up a friend or using a hotel who lives in Moore County, well, as a vast exception. But most of this tax is being paid by outside visitors. And if you go to some other jurisdictions outside of North Carolina, for instance, Myrtle Beach or South Carolina, you'll see these hotel motel tax rates as high as 12, 14%, or even somewhat higher. And people don't even think twice about paying it. I mean, I'm never going to say people don't think about paying a higher tax, but I don't think it needs to be put into the same light as a property tax, which is borne by the property owners. Sometimes that's passed along to tenants if it's a rental situation. But this is truly paid by visitors, and so it's more akin to a sales tax than anything else. So the county commissioners have expressed an interest and reviewing and actually considering an increase to that tax. And I think I've sent out information to you in the past that they plan to have a discussion at their next work session on January 27th. And they've invited the towns, the various towns in Moore County to send representatives. And I know the mayor and myself plan on attending that meeting on January 27th. It starts at 9 a.m. And I think it's the first item on the agenda, as I understand it presently. And I think I just want to kind of hear a general first tier of support, if there is support from the various towns, where they stand with it. And then also, if they have any kind of allocation question about, all right, if there is going to be a move to increase the tax, that's the first step. And presently, just so you understand the numbers, the present 3% produces about $1.7 million per year for all hotel motel stays in Moore County. Again, the numbers with the COVID-19 impact, I'm sure are much lower, but on a standard year, that was the amount of monies that were brought in, year out. So hopefully, in the not too distant future, Moore can be back to that number. And keep in mind also that, we have in Aberdeen, we have a very substantial amount of hotel rooms. We're not just a few here and there. We have a good foundation of hotel rooms. I think we're probably, some 550 hotel rooms, which is substantial. I mean, that puts us in a pretty high category of producing revenue. So we're not just watch and hope and get a share of something that we're not actually producing. We are producing a large amount of revenue with the hotels that are based in our jurisdiction. And as a town, of course, we're supporting those hotels with police, fire, and other public services that we need some help on. So even if the money is actually produced and then it goes to tourism, that would be entirely appropriate and helpful, for advertising our own part of Moore County, that is Aberdeen, or going toward existing parks and, for instance, our sportsplex and other things that would draw tourism. We could dedicate money to that on an annual basis. So the real question is really two-part. Is there interest to support the increase in the tax? And I know from a staff point, you'll get a strong recommendation that we should support that as a town. And maybe the more technical question is exactly how do we divide those proceeds among all of the jurisdictions in Moore County? And there's different approaches there. Without getting into too much detail, because I want to take these questions, probably in order. And again, we will have another shot to meet on this in 2 weeks, but I want you to be thinking about it and get all the thoughts and concerns on the table about this. But the second question of how to divide it, I feel pretty strongly, and it's in my memo, that it would certainly be nice to get a direct allocation on a percentage basis amongst all the towns that are producing hotel rooms or who have hotel rooms and are producing hotel monies. So it's something we could depend on year in, year out, budget around, and have a support mechanism. And in dividing those monies out, if we have that base sum to get started with, then we could also have another fund of money that could be used, or the CVB could control, and maybe it's on a case-by-case basis. If you have a special project, you can make an application to the CVB, as could anyone in the county who is a part of the the tourism contributors for a project to be funded and supported by the other portion of the new occupancy tax. So I think that would be a good, fair manner. Now, exactly how that first portion of money is divided, you could go on per capita, you could go on hotel rooms that you host in your jurisdiction, which I tend to favor. There's other ways to, you could just go on history of tax and how it's been produced in the past. I think that's a little bit restrictive. I'd rather go on, percentage of hotel rooms, because if a new hotel comes on the blocks, which we've just had one that joined our jurisdiction, you should get credit, on a room per room basis for those new contributors as they contribute over time. So, Mayor, that's a lot of basic information. I know you probably have some things to add to that, but I wanted to give you kind of a general picture and then see what questions you might have. But again, just on the timing, we have some time to think about this, but I think we need to have something to present, either in written form or at least something that perhaps the mayor can pass on to the board, by that January 27th meeting, to give the Board of Commissioners for the county, a fair shot to hear our thoughts on it and how we like to move forward on this new tax or this tax increase. Mayor, that's maybe hopefully a way to get started on this conversation.
Thank you, Paul. This room tax issue has been around for a long time. Matter of fact, I think we were talking about this, the previous board was talking about this when Mayor Mofield was mayor. So that was 7 years ago. So this has been around. If you were to go online and check this out, and I don't have all the figures in front of me, but there are surrounding counties we're a tier 3 county. We've got surrounding counties that are tier 1 and tier 2 that actually have a higher occupancy tax rate than Moore County, which we have a lot of people that come to this county. I think I saw recently that we were something like number 11 of all the 100 counties in tourist dollars spent in North Carolina. We were number 11 out of 100. So there's a lot of people that come to Moore County. This 3% or 3 cents, either way you want to look at it, has been around for many, many years, basically because of the golf industry. And that was, as everyone understands, golf is one of the big driving factors in Moore County. But those days are not like they were when this was started. There's other things now that draw people to Moore County other than golf. There's a huge equestrian business in Moore County. Go up around the other end of Southern Pines and see all the horse farms out there. There's a lot of that's involved. We also have other things that draw people to Moore County. So hopefully the county commissioners this time around will see this and say that just like Paul said, anybody that's paying that tax is not living in Moore County. They're all tourists or visitors, put it that way. They don't have to be tourists, they're visitors. And it's not actually taxing the people in Moore County. And then I know that I have been in meetings with others that say, well, this will hurt the golden egg that the goose lays, hurt the goose that lays the golden egg, excuse me. But if you think about it, because golf is such a large industry in Moore County, golfers coming from out of this county, out of this state, that come down here to play golf at 3 cents or 3%, they are getting a heck of a bargain, because if they had to go somewhere else right out of Moore County, it could be 4, 5, or 6%.
Right.
And so we are losing money on this deal. When I say we, the county, and that money could be used for advertising, especially something like the soccer complex, the sports complex. When we get that up and running, it would be great to have some funds in there that we could advertise that, because that would bring people to Moore County and they would stay in our hotels or anywhere in Moore County in a hotel.
That's right.
And it would pay that, they would pay that occupancy tax. That way we could advertise things like that. So this meeting in January that's coming up in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, this is another attempt to see where this is going to go. I think the commissioners, county commissioners have talked about it. I think it's time for something to be said, and let's move on and see what's the reality we have now and raise this tax. Even if they went to 5%, they didn't have to go to 6, they could go to 5 and it would still bring in a lot of money. But like Paul said, if you go out of state, any of you that's been on vacation recently, that in the past, you go out of state somewhere and stay a night in a hotel. I've said this to county commissioners, I've said it to anybody that'll listen. If that percentage, that 2 or 3 or 4%, 5%, 6% is gonna make the difference in you staying there, then you didn't need to go to start with. Because nobody ever looks at it. When you go pay your room tax or your bill at a hotel, like at Myrtle Beach or anywhere else, go up in the mountains, you pay that motel room or hotel tax. I don't know how many people actually look at it. You just pay it.
I do.
And you move on. And so that's the way I'm hoping the commissioners will see this time. If everybody needs to put their head together between now and our next meeting and come up with some ideas. the commissioners, I'm sure they're going to be adamant that it was brought up at a meeting that Paul was in. I don't know how many of you were there. This was a year, probably 2 years ago. And it was brought up about the fact that, the towns, as Paul said, we police these motels. We provide services. And one of the questions was, could you use that hotel tax to offset some of that? I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I do not think the county commissioners will go with that, the ones that I've talked to in the past. So what we need to come up with is a strategy to use it if we get some of this money on advertising. Maybe there would be something in there to build something that would bring tourists to Aberdeen. So that's two different things: building something that would draw tourists here, and also to advertise what we have in Aberdeen. So if you can come up with some good ideas, what you might want to have us present to the county commissioners, if they let us speak about it. We haven't got to the, we do need to be on board with what we would like to do if this thing is raised. They're not going to give us this money just to spend it any way we want to. It has to go for tourism related items.
Yeah. So you said we could use the money possibly like to improve our parks or like our trails and things like that?
Well, that's where you're going to be, where we're going to have to split some hairs, because in order to get that money, I'm thinking that it would have to do something with, if we improve our trails, will it bring anybody to stay in a hotel? I mean, that's basically what they're going to look for.
Right.
Right, that's
And if-
right.
And if
Well,
it does,
Reason
that's
I
fine.
asked, we have a Facebook page over here in our community, and they're constantly asking what's there to do. Like,
Sure.
got family coming in from out of town, what is there to do in Moore County? You know,
Yeah.
are there parks, are there museums, and
Yeah.
things like that. So if we could build up what we already have, that's what I was just curious about.
Sure.
Raised Bridge, there could
Yes.
be done like in the Raised Bridge area, or
Yes. Anything that is related, this fund, the arrangement in Moore County is not like the arrangement in some of the other counties. I don't know how many counties have this tax, probably near about all of them. But if you read through some of these other counties, they do not have it set up like Moore County has it set up. And this was set up many years ago. They have a contract with the CVB, and they pretty much, they distribute that money pretty much the way they want to. If you look in our state magazine, that's a good example, beautiful magazine, they advertise, but basically what they advertise is Pinehurst, which I understand where that's going. But there's a whole lot more to Moore County, and I don't want to get on the wrong side of anybody, but than golf. There's other things here. And we are hoping that if they'll raise this tax, we can advertise what we do have. And I can tell you that one of the principal things that we could advertise would be that sportsplex. Because if you bring in a whole bunch of children to play soccer, or adults, either one, they're going, if they stay overnight, they're going to stay in a motel or hotel in this area.
I agree.
And that was what would bring that tax to us, is if we can advertise something.
Yes. Yes, that's good.
Anyway, think of what we can come up with in between now and the next time we meet. And if you've got a kind of a checklist on things that we could advertise that would support Aberdeen, that we could put out there. I may have talked to some of you about this before, but I was in Cameron. You know, Cameron does that street fair, antique fair. I think they do it twice a year. They didn't do it this past year, but they've been doing that for many, many years. And I talked to one of the, I don't know if he's still a commissioner up there or not in Cameron, but I talked to one probably 2 or 3 years ago, and they said they didn't have funds to advertise that street fair. And to think about it, that brings in a whole lot of people, but the little town of Cameron just didn't have the funds to advertise. They did advertise, I think, in some trade magazines. That was about it. But they could put a big ad in, say, our state magazine or something, if they had some funds. I don't know if they'll get any out of this or not. But there are things that go on in Moore County that actually are not getting a large exposure. And if we could advertise them, it would bring people here. So anyway, let's everybody come up with something. We'll try to compile it between our meeting and the meeting with the county commissioners, and and hopefully we can present it to them.
Sounds good.
Any other discussions on that?
Mayor, I'm very much interested in Paul's mixed formula, which kind of is a three-pronged approach. I think it's important to approach this across the
Yes,
county. And
Yes,
and while we are very fortunate to have 500 plus hotel rooms, there are a lot of other smaller municipalities that,
yes,
as you were saying, offer a lot in their local areas from a tourist standpoint that folks could benefit from learning about. So as we move towards the end of the month, I'm definitely interested in pursuing this three-pronged discussion and see how that plays out with the county commissioners to see exactly, what their interest will be in that. And then at the end of the day, what that would actually translate into for the town of Aberdeen in terms of dollars based on the selected percentage.
yeah, that's, I'm sure that'll have to be worked out because again, the county commissioners don't spend that money. It goes to the CVB. That's that arrangement that was made years ago. And I'm not privy to all that they do at the county level, but I don't think they have any control over it. Once they give that money that's raised to the CVB turns around and uses it. The local municipalities have no say-so in this money as it is right now. We've never had any say-so in it. So hopefully this will get a good discussion. I know Pinehurst Incorporated is always at one of these meetings, so they've got a huge stake in this. Also, Pine Needles Country Club has a huge stake in this. And now that of all the hoteliers in Moore County, Ms. McPeak and her family are now number 2 as far as rooms. At one time, it was Pinehurst, then Pinehurst Incorporated, then Pine Needles, and then it was Ms. McPeak and her family. But now, as far as I understand, she has gone up to number 2. So it'll be interesting to see the 3 majors that have motels, hotels in Moore County to see where they come down on this. Again, this is not going to, in my opinion, I don't own any of those hotels. I don't have a stake in any of them, but I can't see raising that from what it is now to a higher level would do anything to diminish anyone coming to play golf or travel to Moore County. I just don't see it, especially when you have counties that surround us that have a higher one than we do, and they don't have a Pinehurst. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's a good idea, Joe. Thank you for that. And everybody come up with what you would like a wish list to be. Remember now, it's not the county commissioners that's going to give us the money. It would be the CVB. It's my understanding, unless something changes.
Oh, yes, Mayor, I do have something to say. I agree with everything that was said, but I did attend one of the Tri-Cities meeting, and my comment at that meeting was that CVB was there and he was speaking, that they really needed to define, which I didn't feel they did, where the money goes and how to get the money, because there was different questions asked and it wasn't really clear. So I think that once we get the money, and I think we will, I think that needs to be defined.
Yes.
We need to talk about that. Where are they? Because like you said, they're going to get the money. And at that particular meeting, as I recall, it was not, they wasn't clear on how to get the money, if there's a grant of this. So I think that needs to be looked at too.
I have heard in some of these meetings, thank you, Ms. Laney, where towns would kind of have to have hat in hand and go and ask for money. That doesn't seem to work for me. If that tax is being raised in Aberdeen, like we've said, we've got almost 500 rooms here, thereabouts. That money's being raised here. It doesn't seem like we need to go hat in hand asking for money to me, it ought to be on a percentage or something. I mean, it ought to be some way that it's cut and dry, that if you've got a percentage of something or whatever, a population of something, that's your share, instead of every time you turn around, you have to go ask for some money, then they have to go through their board, and then they have to decide, is this a good reason to give this town money? So
Absolutely.
we'll have to wait and see.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good thought there. And I like what Joe Danley said about the mixed formula. I think this was presented very well by Paul Saveston. I like what he's talked about. If you give everybody, someone that doesn't have a hotel, some feedback though, where they can feel like they're in this also. I think that's a fairer way to do it. And I think that mixed formula way that he has described, I think that would work for this county. Now that.
I agree.
Okay.
Any others while we're on this? Put your thinking caps on and bring us some ideas when we meet again on this topic.
Okay.
We will meet, I mean, we're going to the county on the 27th, so we need all this in by then. So if there's nothing else, anybody else on this one?
They
All
will
right.
decide the rate, correct? The county commissioners? Or will they take,
Yes, the county commissioners set the rate.
okay, they haven't yet decided. They're still voting on that.
Well, like I said, Ms. Beavers, this thing has been kicked around for years. It comes and goes. I know at one time, this was when Mayor Mofield was in office, and like I said, that was over 7 years ago. The discussion of doing a big sports complex down on the Ransdale property was around. And that was one of the topics that came up then, was the room tax. Now we're talking about at least 7 years ago.
Right.
Or more.
Yes.
So this thing has been batted around and batted around.
Right.
So maybe,
Well,
maybe this time they'll decide on what
Maybe
they.
it'll work. Maybe it'll work this time.
Well, I was just saying, looking at, like you said, like counties that attract tourism, a lot of them are at 6, and as much golfing as we do here, I think we should at least have 6. I mean,
Well,
input into it.
it's like that report I saw, and it wasn't this past year. I think it was 2018, maybe. I'm not sure what the date was, but we were number 11 for tourism dollars spent,
Right,
if I'm
right.
correct, in Moore
Yeah,
County.
I think it's only fair then. Yeah, 6 would be
Good.
great.
Go down to any of the beaches. Go down to any of the beaches in North Carolina and see what you're going to pay.
Well, I know Boone is 6%,
Sure.
and
Sure.
golf
Yeah.
is huge right now. So
Yeah, that's right. Okay, anybody else? All right, if nothing else, I'll close out number 3, and we'll go to number 4, which is other business. Paul, do you have any other business?
No, sir, I don't, except just to remind the board, I don't know if everyone got the email, but I think the Tri-Cities group is going to try and meet online again. And I think, Mayor, if I got the date right, that's January 26th. A message just went out today, just as a reminder about topics that may be on there. So I'm about 99% certain that will be an online meeting. So when that gets firmed up, I'll certainly send it out to our representatives, but I want to let you know that is in the works. And then also just a reminder that we are going to shoot for this Friday, starting at 8:30 for the strategic planning meeting. And right now we're still planning on meeting over at the Parks facility, in the big room there at 8:30 to have that discussion and just revisit, our strategic plan and those goals.
Anyone else?
Commissioner Danley, when do you expect to have a read ahead for us prior to
I'm
that?
hoping by Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening to get you out the packet on that. So if there's anything else you want, and I know Commissioner Dana, we've gone back and forth a little bit on a few items. I may have one more question for you tomorrow, but I'll send you something on that. But I think we're getting pretty close and just getting the packet put together.
I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody on Friday if we can. Thanks.
Yeah, and on your recommendation too, I think what we'll do is just have coffee and like maybe just a light, not even a breakfast, maybe some donuts in the morning, and then probably try to actually not go after lunch, but have lunch available for the attendees. And that way, if we got a few things to finish up during lunch, we can kind of have a working lunch and get through that and try to be done by 1 o'clock. I think we can do it all in that about 3.5, 4 hour period.
Sounds good.
Anyone else with other business?
Looks
The
like the
town-
police station is coming along very well.
Despite the rain and the snow and the cold.
Yeah, from what I
Anybody
see each day, yeah.
Did anybody see any snow? I think I saw about 20 flakes.
Yeah, we actually rode around and it was coming down pretty good over here in my neighborhood and downtown.
It was snowing. Of course, I live on the higher elevation. We're up on Paint Hill, so we're higher than the lowlands and everything. It was snowing, and we could see it under our floodlights out the back of the house, and we could see snowflakes coming down. So I ran to the phone and I called my sister who lives over here on US 1 beside the Presbyterian Church in those apartments. And I said, get out of bed and walk out there and look at all the pretty snow coming down. So I heard her put the phone down and she fumbled around. She got to the door and she came back. She said, why'd you get me out of bed? There's not a bit of snow over here. I said, well, I'm sorry about that. I said, well, it's because we live on the higher elevations. So anyway, thank y'all. Anybody else? All right, do I have a motion, Ms. Laney?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
And I second it.
All right, there's a motion by Ms. Laney to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor.
By Ms. Goodwin. All right, all in favor?
Mr. Mayor.
Before you get out.
Question by someone.
Yes, sir. I have a brief update. I apologize. I was on mute and couldn't figure out how to work the button.
Okay.
Real brief update on some construction. I know some people were asking what the status of a lot of different things are. I don't have the chart in front of you all, obviously, but to go through a brief rundown, Sandy Springs is still building out. They are expected to sell out the rest of the property to McKee Homes. Right now, they're at about 40% build out in terms of completed homes. They still probably have another 10 to 15 homes currently under construction of the 285 that were planned. Legacy Lakes, they're at about 32% build out. Most of their phases or most of the phase one is almost completed. They have 2 other phases that are currently under construction with a 4th phase in review for a second review. That's going to add another 200 homes. As I mentioned in my weekly and monthly report, that phase 4, is going to be along the 15501 road frontage in between the roundabout and south of the clubhouse. So that's expected to begin construction probably in the next 8 to 12 months, along with those other phases that I mentioned earlier. Parkway Meadows is 82.5% build out of the 40 homes. That's the subdivision off of PD Road across the street from Parkway. That will probably come online at 100% capacity in the next month or 2. Most of those homes are constructed and almost all of them are under construction. So that neighborhood will close out soon. Bethesda Forest is the neighborhood that is EL Ives. Phase 1 is complete at 11 homes. They were initially approved for 35. Staff doesn't see any movement happening on that anytime soon. The developer we've LOS'd, which is loss of signal. We haven't heard from them in a while. We don't plan on hearing them from them in a while. And we haven't seen any plans for any additional phases, although they did have 4 phases proposed. Only phase 1 was ever completed. Meadow Ridge is at 72% build out. They had 151 homes. Meadow Ridge is off of NC5. They have 109 homes completed, but I'd say that number is probably higher. That neighborhood came in before we started tracking through InterGov, so the numbers may be off. If I'm not mistaken, in talking with Mike, all of Meadow Ridge is under construction, or most that there may be 1 or 2 lots that haven't seen permits pulled, but everything else is either completed or under construction. Winds Way, they're rocking and rolling on their phase 2. They're getting ready to get approval for their neighborhood swim club. Their phase 1 is completely under construction. Their phase 2, I believe, their infrastructure and roadways are under construction. I'll need to check that. They may need some more plans for phase 2, but that was a 3-phase subdivision that had 111 homes. That's the subdivision that's off the corner of Linden and NC5. Devonshire, which is the Devon Circle. That was approved for 42 homes. That's at about a 59% build out, 60% if you round up build out. They have 25 homes constructed. Phase 1 isn't completed yet. There's still one lot where the construction entrance is that they've not built on. Probably won't for a while. I've been talking with the developer, the original developer, who is expecting to sell the rest of the phase. They have some issues because they want to piggyback off the original phase from 10, 15 years ago, which state statutes doesn't allow you to do. They need to resubmit, and I think that's where they are. So staff expects the full civils for phase 2 to connect Devon Circle back to Devonshire to come in shortly. That's most of the subdivisions currently under construction. We do have quite a few in review. Martin Farms, which is the 515 home subdivision around Aberdeen Elementary School off of Farrell Parkway. That is in their first review. Staff sent out comments. It's a 42-page civil plan, so there was a lot to look at. We had over 100 comments, but we expect the engineer and the developer to work closer together because some of the things that were mentioned at the conditional zoning for the plan unit development and plan development weren't reciprocated on the plan. So they've got some work to do, but nothing huge. We're expecting them to submit probably in the next couple of weeks for a version 2 of that first phase. As you may remember, that first phase will go all the way to a roundabout in the center of the project and then go out towards Rowe Avenue, and all of that will be constructed before any home gets constructed. They are saving the commercial entities part up near NC5 for a later date. But right now they're proposing 200 homes in the first phase, phase 1A and 1B. Broad Street Plan Development is still back and forth between the developers, staff, and the town of Southern Pines. Staff held a pretty positive Zoom meeting, I believe, last week with the new engineers of that project and the property owner or the project owner. They still have some work to do on making sure water gets to the property to meet fire flows, as well as rate, so we can put out those fires and maintain control of that system. So they still have work to do on that. But outside that, I think in concept, staff likes where they're going on that one. Bluebird Hill, which is a proposed 10-lot subdivision by Habitat at the end of Kaiser and PD. That's in, I think, a 4th or 5th review. We're expected their engineer to submit plans, their final set, hopefully, to revise an intersection. And once they do that, we see that first phase, which is 5 lots, to be completed or under construction very soon. The first 5 lots are going to face Kaiser, so there's no need to build any infrastructure outside of some sidewalk. They'll build those first 5 facing Kaiser, and they'll move on, hopefully, with the second phase in the years to come. Collinswood is a property. It is 62 acres off of 211. Right now, that is a conservation subdivision that's under sketch plan review for 112 homes. That's actually got a pretty low density, comparatively speaking, at 1.79 units per acre. They're expecting they're going to have to work with staff to find a third entrance. After about 71 homes, you have to have a third entrance. The UDO allows you to stub that out to adjacent property, but TRC makes sure that adjacent property makes sense. If you stub it out to an acre-sized lot, that's not going to make any sense. You're not building that road to connect another neighborhood to it. So that's the purpose of the conduit. They do have 2 entrances proposed on 211, so there would definitely be circulation and life safety issues resolved on that. Bethesda Road is a 34-acre tract of land that's north of Devonshire. They're proposing 74 units. It's 2.16 units per acre. It is also a conservation subdivision. So in the grand scheme of things, staff is looking at them saving roughly 30% of that property for open space. Same thing as with Collinswood. That's going to be about 40% of open space of the overall project. So we're talking about 25 and 10 acres that can't be touched on these lands. And then we have Echo Relocation that Commissioner Beavers mentioned earlier. And that is 11 home subdivision that's fronting Kaiser, South Street, and Glasgow. Those are all those lots will be facing existing utilities and roadways. So infrastructure on that will be minimum. That's currently all we're tracking. We do have some exciting site plans in right now. what I like to call is Project Bessie. It's going to be a new fast food concept on the corner of 15501 and Johnson Street. It's about a 5,000 square foot fast food restaurant of somebody who's already in town looking to relocate. Staff is unsure whether they're going to keep both locations open, but we are making sure, and with DOT's help, we're making sure that we don't have a repeat of Starbucks. This restaurant's proposing 40 cars in their queue for their drive-through. It's actually not even a drive-through. It's more like a walk-up. All of the food is delivered on foot. And that's the concept that this national retailer is going towards. They have a door as opposed to a window for pickup. And obviously they take your order as they do now on foot as well most of the time. So that's exciting, but we are looking at that very closely to make sure we don't have backing up. 40 cars seems like a lot. And comparatively speaking, Wendy's and Bojangles has about 14 to 15 cars queued up. And just yesterday, I saw Wendy's backing on to US 1. This restaurant is proposing 40 cars in their queue. And knowing what they currently do now, they'll need every single one of those and probably more. So we're working very closely with the developer and the engineers out of Georgia to make that happen. Obviously, you've also heard about the potential for a pizza restaurant on the corner of Sycamore and Main. That's going to be, to my understanding, it's going to be ran by the same owners and operators of Mason's. They are currently, I don't know that they're under construction or not, but I do know that they were doing some work in there. They're supposed to be working closely with Mike McGowan, our chief building official, to pull building permits. The new bar on Main, the workshop, I don't believe they're open yet, but I do see numerous ads for them at hiring line cooks as well as bartenders. So downtown seems to be doing some strong growing as well into current locations. Obviously, the Sway posted an article about Soiree on South, which is our new multi-use event storefront that's in the former Bullroom right next to where Bernie Hardware used to be. Obviously, the owner purchased not just the building, but also the vacant lot and is currently under construction to expand an outdoor patio into that vacant lot. So South Street's getting their fair share of investment dollars by private citizens as well, and downtown's looking pretty strong. That's all I have right now. Is there any questions?
Have you heard anything about these street lights?
I have not. I've actually been out of the office for the past week. Last I heard from Duke was there was a slight delay, but we still are tracking that and making sure that it happens as soon as possible. Obviously, the first of the year did not happen, but we do have 2 set aside for us. And as soon as we can get the contractor, not Duke, but their contractor on the schedule to install them, they will be installed on South Street.
Thank you.
What
All right,
about the South Street Social Club? What's the update on his business? Any updates?
I would need to double check with staff to see if they need to pull any building permits or if they have or not. I don't have any update at this point.
I didn't know if he'd opened up or not.
No, ma'am.
No, okay.
You may want to verify. I drove by the other day on South Street and there were people in there getting tats. So
Okay, I will double check.
looked like it was happening. So I thought they were actually open.
They might be. Like I said, I and most of my staff have been working remotely and from home, so I would need to double check on that building permit.
Please do. We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Other business? Anyone else? All right, if you vote, please say your name. All in favor?
Liz Goodwin, yes.
Brian Bowles, yes.
Wilma Laney, yes.
Joe Danley, yes.
Teresa Beavers, yes.
Thank you. We are out. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Now, may I tell you something? I'm getting my vaccine tomorrow.
Good. Good.
COVID vaccine over at the Moore County Health Department at 2:30 in the afternoon. Yay!
Tell us about it.
I will. I'm excited.